Welcome back to the battlefield of the mind. Let me ask you something. When did kindness start to feel like weakness? When did silence start to feel like defeat? Most people never notice the exact moment it happens. But one day you look in the mirror and realize you've been trained to smile while being devoured. You've been taught that patience is virtue, that forgiveness is strength, that humility will earn you peace. But here's the truth no one wants to admit. The world doesn't reward your softness. It studies it, measures it, and uses it against you. You've been conditioned to stay calm while others cross lines, to explain yourself to people who've already decided to misunderstand you, to love those who drain you, and call it loyalty. That's why most people never evolve. They spend their lives as open doors, letting anyone walk through, leaving nothing of themselves behind. But there comes a breaking point, a moment when something in you stops negotiating. You stop waiting for apologies. You stop proving your worth. You stop explaining your silence. That's the moment the second version of you is born. The one that doesn't need to shout to be feared. The one that commands respect simply by existing. Machiavelli once said, "He who builds on the people builds on mud." He meant that strength built on validation will collapse the second the applause fades. Real power begins the moment you stop asking for permission to have it. Today, I'm not here to teach you how to be nice. I'm here to teach you how to be necessary. How to carry yourself so quietly, so confidently, that people feel your presence before you speak. Because this world doesn't destroy the ruthless. It destroys the hesitant. By the end of this, you'll understand why control is more sacred than love, why distance is deadlier than confrontation, and why the most dangerous person in any room is the one who has nothing left to prove. Before we start, write this in the comments. My silence is not weakness, it's evolution. Number 1. Cease offering yourself to the thankless. The initial metamorphosis into relentlessness commences when you comprehend this. Your greatest vulnerability was never your heart. It was where you positioned it. You've been spilling vitality into individuals who consume your radiance but never reciprocate. You continued assisting, pardoning, clarifying, hoping that perhaps they would finally recognize your value, but they never do. Why? Because in the psychology of influence, what is freely offered is instinctively undervalued. Individuals naturally associate generosity with subordination. They presume if you give too readily, it's because you crave to be appreciated. And the instant someone detects your craving, they dominate you. That is how frailty is created. Not from defeat, but from emotional reliance masked as benevolence. Machiavelli once stated, "Men are swifter to harm one who is adored than one who is dreaded." The thankless misuse your goodness precisely because they don't dread losing it. They know you'll remain. They know you'll forgive. They know that regardless of how poorly they treat you, you'll justify their conduct with rationalizations. That isn't empathy. That is self-deception. The reality is individuals recall agony, not kindness. They esteem repercussions, not clarifications. The more foreseeable your compassion, the more invisible you become. Each instance you endured disrespect, you conditioned them to perceive you as expendable. Each instance you clarified your value, you verified you had to demonstrate it. That is the silent psychology behind why the kind are broken first. The world doesn't annihilate you because you're compassionate. It annihilates you because you conflate being compassionate with being defenseless. The thankless are hunters in human disguise. They don't pursue your physique. They pursue your shame. They make you feel terrible for safeguarding yourself. They distort your empathy into a weapon and wound you with it. So stop believing you owe anyone your fidelity just because you once valued them. Your care is an honor, not an entitlement. Grant it solely to those who have merited it. Through steadfast respect, everyone else should experience the edge of your absence. Separation is your safeguard. Apathy is your retribution. Machiavelli grasped this profoundly when he said, "Men are thankless, changeable, treacherous, timid and greedy. He was cautioning you, never grant authority to the thankless because they'll utilize it to enfeeble you. You must discard the conviction that being virtuous will rescue you. Virtue without limits is a death warrant. Relentlessness is not savagery. It is rectification. It is the moment you cease rewarding treachery with entry. When you stop replying to every call, stop excusing every falsehood, stop justifying your quiet, the thankless become alarmed. They realize they can no longer feed on your emotional responses. That is when authority transfers. You become the one who determines who receives your focus and who vanishes into obscurity. The world belongs to those who preserve their energy like an armament, not those who squander it like a hope. Every bit of strength you pour into the incorrect people is authority stolen from your future. Retract it, stockpile it, reconstruct it. Let them question what occurred to your warmth. Inform them it's solidified when you ultimately witness the truth. Some individuals merit your remoteness more than your dedication. Now I want you to post this declaration in the comments. My benevolence possesses boundaries. Number 2. Convert agony into strength. Agony is the most authentic instructor because it never deceives. It doesn't flatter your self-importance. It doesn't concern itself with your justification. It reveals you, strips you, incinerates everything feeble inside you until only the genuine you remains. The distinction between the broken and the potent isn't the quantity of agony they experienced. It's what they accomplished with. Feeble individuals submerge in agony because they keep seeking justice. They still believe the world owes them healing, but ruthless intellects know the reality. Agony is capital. You either expend it constructing yourself, or waste it by protesting. The ones who ascend from ruin are not fortunate. They are tactical. They examine betrayal, heartache, and failure, and instead of inquiring, why me, they ask, what is this instructing me about command? Machiavelli once declared, never squander the opening provided by a favorable crisis. Every moment of suffering is a chance to progress into someone impervious. Agony is not a penalty. It is intelligence. It informs you precisely where your frailty resides. Every betrayal demonstrates who you confided in too easily. Every rejection discloses where you positioned your value. Every loss reveals the mirage of permanence. When you begin observing agony through that perspective, it ceases being an injury and becomes an armament. You start utilizing it to hone your intellect instead of demolish it. The shadowy psychology of transformation resides in transmuting suffering into tactic. Most individuals weep to feel improved. The powerful contemplate to become stronger. When they're wounded, they don't seek resolution, they generate power. They scrutinize their adversaries instead of despising them. They examine their errors instead of evading them. They transform every heartache into emotional discipline, every letdown into concentration. That is the essence of Machiavellian endurance. To utilize the world's cruelty as fuel, not as restraints. Agony is the furnace where supremacy is born. When life breaks you, it's revealing you who you truly are without facades. Stop fleeing from it. Reside with, experience every bit of the blaze, because once you survive your own suffering, no one else can dominate you with fear. The instant you stop fearing agony, you become unforeseeable, and unpredictability is authority. When others attempt to manipulate you through guilt or rejection, it no longer functions, because you've already confronted worse and endured. Machiavelli held that a prudent man gains more from adversity than from comfort. That's because agony activates consciousness. It compels evolution. It silences delusion. You start perceiving individuals for who they are, not who you desired they'd be. You start selecting logic over sentiment. The more you withstand, the less reactive you become. You move like someone who's already endured the inferno and survive. That vitality commands esteem because it's hazardous. Individuals sense it when you enter a space. The aura of someone who has converted every injury into insight. You no longer bear scars with disgrace. You wear them like protection. Your quiet becomes weighty, your gaze unwavering. That's when you know you've transitioned from being molded by agony to molding others through it. The next time life harms you, don't condemn it. Examine it. Ask yourself, What benefit is concealed here? Because every moment of torment carries a seed of supremacy if you're relentless enough to utilize it. Post this declaration in the comments. My agony constructs power. Number 3. Eliminate the craving to be comprehended. The desire to be comprehended is the snare that binds influential minds to ordinariness. You keep explaining yourself, hoping individuals will perceive your intentions, your goodness, your truth. But here is the severe reality. Most don't care to comprehend you. They only care to classify you. They don't listen to understand. They listen to discover frailty. The more you explain, the more intelligence you provide them to utilize against you. In shadow psychology, comprehension equals control. When individuals know your motives, they know how to manipulate you. That is why the relentless stay mute. They let others speculate, project, presume, and in that bewilderment they remain impervious. Machiavelli once stated, "He who desires to be obeyed must know how to command, and to command you must never over-clarify, because clarifying is a protective act. It discloses that you still seek endorsement. Authority doesn't vindicate itself, it merely exists." The most intimidating individuals are the ones who don't explain why they act, feel, or vanish. Their quiet generates strain. That strain generates esteem. The feeble plead to be observed. The powerful opt to be misconstrued. You must comprehend that when you stop defending yourself, you become unforeseeable, and unpredictability is fear's sibling. Individuals can't control what they can't decipher. That is why sovereigns, commanders, and tacticians throughout history perfected the craft of vagueness. They spoke less than they knew and acted more than they explained. You must learn to do the same. Every occasion you hurry to explain your intentions, you relinquish the blueprint of your emotions. You're instructing others how to disarm you. The perilous aspect of being transparent is that it invites dissection, and dissection always kills the enchantment of authority. Machiavelli penned, "The prudent man does immediately what the fool does ultimately." The prudent cease justifying themselves early while the fool continues talking until he's revealed. You don't owe anyone clarity about your selection. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your distance, your quiet, your standards, or your transformation. Let them misapprehend. Let them presume you've become cold, conceited, detached. Every incorrect label they assign you adds another layer to your armor. The moment you stop attempting to correct them, you regain control, because control resides in restraint. Quiet is not frailty. It is weaponized poise. It makes others anxious because they can't predict your subsequent actions, and uncertainty makes them wary. That is psychological domination. Consider the most authoritative individuals you've ever encountered. They weren't loud. They were composed. Their presence demanded attention, not because they yelled, but because they didn't need to. Every word they didn't utter spoke louder than 1,000 vindications. You must become that kind of presence. An enigma no one can fully grasp. A tempest that doesn't announce itself. When someone tries to provoke you, let your quiet suffocate their ego. When someone misjudges you, let them reside in their own presumptions. The truth is your weapon. Don't waste it proving your innocence. Those who need to comprehend you don't deserve to. Those who genuinely value you will never require an explanation. Authority is not about persuading others. It's about becoming so self-assured that their confusion no longer matters. Once you stop needing to be comprehended, you finally begin to comprehend yourself. I want you to post this declaration in the comments. My quiet expresses power. Number 4. Separate, don't plead. Pleading for attention, affection or resolution is how the authoritative become servants. The more you pursue what is departing, the tinier you become in the eyes of those who never planned to value you. Separation is not coldness. It is a command. It is the aptitude of walking away from anything that menaces your self-regard, no matter how intensely you desire it. Most individuals mistake attachment for fidelity, but they are opposites. Fidelity is strength. Attachment is reliance. The world has conditioned you to believe that battling for individuals verifies your care. But in shadow psychology, the one who pursues always loses authority. The act of pleading, whether for time, devotion, or attention, broadcasts frailty, and frailty invites exploitation. Machiavelli once wrote, "The one who is not master of himself cannot be master of others." When your emotions govern you, you are simple to control. The ruthless detach, not because they lack emotion, but because they refuse to be possessed by it. When someone withdraws, they don't dispute or explain. They watch. When someone disrespects them, they don't appeal. They disappear. Quiet becomes their blade, and absence becomes their communication. In a world constructed on emotional manipulation, separation is the ultimate defiance. It terrifies manipulators, because it kills their authority source, your reaction. Once you stop reacting, you become indecipherable, and when you're indecipherable, you become dread. The clandestine weapon of the authoritative is not fury, it is apathy. Apathy burns colder than hatred, and endures longer than love. When individuals can no longer foresee how you'll respond, they lose their control over your mind. That is the moment your vitality begins to shift. You stop being the one who waits and start being the one who decides. The ones who once disregarded you start to notice you're quiet, because quiet from a once responsive individual is louder than any confrontation. Separation grants you an unusual kind of jurisdiction. The jurisdiction to walk away from chaos with your peace undamaged. Machiavelli believed that control over one's emotions was the foundation of every successful ruler, because those who cannot detach are doomed to be controlled by those who can. He said men are driven by two principal impulses, either by love or by fear. If you can master your attachment, you will control both. The ruthless comprehend that not everyone merits access, not every emotion merits expression, and not every relationship merits revival. You must learn to withdraw your vitality without proclamation, to close doors silently, and to make your distance feel like a penalty. That is psychological warfare at its most refined form. The more you separate, the more authority you reclaim. You begin to realize that peace is not discovered in connection, it's discovered in control. Authentic strength is when you can adore someone profoundly, yet walk away the instant they threaten your self-regard. Separation doesn't signify you don't care. It signifies you care appropriately about yourself first, because when you stop pleading, you stop hemorrhaging, and when you stop hemorrhaging, no one can feed on you again. Post this declaration in the comments. I select peace over people. Number 5. Boundaries are your protection. Boundaries are the unseen walls that divide authority from chaos. Without them, your life becomes an open field where anyone can enter, take what they want, and leave you hollow. You've been instructed to believe that saying no is self-centered, that establishing limits makes you unkind. But in truth, the absence of boundaries is self-betrayal. Every instance you endure disrespect, every instance you pardon, without consequence, every instance you let individuals cross lines to maintain the peace, you surrender fragments of yourself. Feeble men and women confuse tolerance with strength. The ruthless know superior. They comprehend that a heart without armor is a target. Machiavelli once wrote, "A prince who is not prudent himself cannot be well counseled." What he implied was simple: if you cannot guard yourself, no one else will. The world doesn't honor openness, it exploits it. The ones who smile at your kindness today will utilize your forgiveness tomorrow. That is the nature of unchecked human desire. Individuals always test the limits you refuse to enforce. Boundaries are not walls to keep others out. They are gates that safeguard what's sacred inside you. They are not cruel, they are lucid, and lucidity terrifies manipulators, because it removes their leverage. In shadow psychology, boundaries are weapons of control. The individual who enforces them dictates the conditions of every relationship. When you calmly say no without guilt, you communicate dominance. When you sever access after betrayal, you announce that your value is non-negotiable. The authoritative don't debate about respect, they demonstrate it through distance. Forgiveness without consequences is submission. Mercy without structure invites chaos. The moment you stop rewarding poor conduct with your presence, you begin to command quiet from those who once disrespected you. The fearful will call it arrogance, the feeble will label it ego, but the wise will recognize it as self-command. Machiavelli also said, "He who permits himself to be deceived is deserving of deception." You instruct individuals how to treat you by what you tolerate. The moment you start protecting your space like a stronghold, the parasites vanish.
the noise fades, and your peace returns. That's when you finally observe who values you for real, those who respect your regulations instead of resenting them. Boundaries attract quality and repel corruption. They filter the loyal from the opportunistic, the genuine from the manipulative. They make your presence feel earned, not accessible. To live without boundaries is to live without dignity. To live with them is to command your world with quiet jurisdiction. The ruthless know that kindness without defense invites destruction, so they construct walls not out of fear, but out of wisdom, because the objective isn't to be liked, it's to be respected. Remember, every boundary you establish is a declaration. This is where my peace begins, and those who genuinely value you will never ask you to lower your arm. They'll stand outside it with honor. Now I want you to post this declaration in the comments. My boundaries shield me. Number 6. Perfect the craft of quiet. Quiet is the weapon the authoritative utilize when words lose their value. Most individuals dread quiet because it exposes their lack of control. They speak to fill the void, to verify their confidence, to seek endorsement through noise. But every superfluous word you utter becomes ammunition for someone else's manipulation. The wise comprehend that in a world addicted to talking, quiet is dominance. Machiavelli once wrote, "Never disclose all your thoughts, for it makes you foreseeable and vulnerable." The moment individuals can read your emotions, they can compute your reaction, and the one who can predict, you can control you. Quiet makes you indecipherable. It builds an atmosphere of mystery that compels others to second-guess themselves. The silent man in the room always holds more authority than the one shouting for attention. In shadow psychology, quiet is not emptiness. It is a tactic. It shifts the balance of control without confrontation. When you say nothing, you let others disclose everything. They expose their insecurities, motives, and frailties while trying to comprehend. The ruthless utilize this to their benefit. They listen more than they speak, observe more than they explain, and act more than they promise. The feeble rush to prove their point. The powerful wait for the perfect moment to strike. Every pause you hold in a conversation increases your jurisdiction. Every occasion you let others fill the quiet, they unknowingly surrender intelligence. Machiavelli believed that authority thrives in perception. The less individuals know about your intentions, the more they dread them. Quiet generates psychological tension. It makes others project their fears onto you. They start wondering what you're thinking, what you might do next, and that uncertainty grants you invisible control. This is why quiet isn't absent. Its presence intensified. You don't need to shout to be heard. Your restraint speaks louder than chaos. The loudest individual rarely holds authority. They crave it, but the silent one already possesses it. The rulers of history understood this truth. The less you reveal, the more they imagine. The more they imagine, the more they You must learn to weaponize your calm, to utilize quiet as your language. When someone insults you, stay silent and watch them unravel in their own guilt. When someone provokes you, give no reaction, and let their desperation expose them. Your quiet will echo louder than any argument. Individuals expect noise. They dread stillness. In stillness lies control. Machiavelli said, "The prudent man does immediately what the fool does." Ultimately, the fool defends himself with words. The prudent guards himself with quiet. The moment you stop explaining, you shift from emotional to tactical. You stop playing defense and start commanding the game. Authority doesn't plead to be comprehended. It demands to be felt. Quiet makes you unforeseeable, and unpredictability breeds risk. When you learn to hold your tongue, you learn to hold your authority, and in a world where everyone wants to be heard, the one who perfects quiet becomes impossible to defeat. Post this declaration in the comments. My quiet commands chaos. Number 7. Never display complete fidelity. Fidelity is a weapon only when it's selective. The moment you give it blindly, it becomes your cage. Machiavelli warned that men are thankless, changeable, and deceptive, so to expect purer fidelity is to invite betrayal. Authority belongs to those who know when to align and when to withdraw. The world is not moved by goodness, it is moved by tactics. When you display absolute fidelity to anyone, a friend, a mentor, or a leader, you surrender your independence. They start to view your devotion as frailty, not virtue. The loyal are foreseeable, and predictability is death in the game of authority. Shadow psychology instructs that fidelity must be a computed act, never an emotional one. Authentic Machiavellian fidelity is conditional. It serves your growth, your protection, once it stops serving those, it must be re-evaluated. Most individuals remain loyal out of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being labeled untrustworthy, fear of losing approval. But these are the same individuals who end up discarded, betrayed or replaced when they are no longer useful. The authoritative never attach themselves to the individual, they attach to the opportunity. They know alliances shift, like tides. They don't resist it, they ride it. Your fidelity should be a mask, not your identity. You wear it when it benefits you, and you remove it when it becomes a liability. This is not cruelty, it's realism. The world rewards those who think, not those who feel. Machiavelli wrote, "A prudent man ought never to make himself depend wholly on one thing or one person. Dependence kills autonomy, and autonomy is the root of dominance. Never reveal where your true allegiance lies. Let individuals believe you're on their side, but remain free internally." The illusion of fidelity is far more powerful than fidelity itself. It keeps others comfortable while keeping you impervious. In politics, business and personal life, this is how empires are constructed. Kings fall because they trust too deeply. Subordinates are eliminated because they serve too faithfully. Friends turn enemies because they expect equality, where hierarchy rules. When you are too loyal, individuals stop respecting you. They test your boundaries, they exploit your devotion, and they stop dreading your withdrawal. Fear maintains order. When individuals know you can walk away without hesitation, they treat your fidelity as a privilege, not a guarantee. That's how you command respect. You must learn to give fidelity like a sword, sharp, deliberate, and only when it cuts in your favor. Never give it like a gift. Gifts are forgotten, but weapons are remembered. This mindset makes you unforeseeable, which is the ultimate psychological advantage. They can't manipulate someone, they can't define, and that's the essence of Machiavellian authority, to remain a mystery in plain sight, loyal in appearance but sovereign in reality. The modern world will call this cold or heartless, but those are the words of the powerless, the same ones who worship those who betrayed them. Remember this truth: fidelity without tactic is self-betrayal. You owe nothing to anyone who would not bleed for your survival. Your allegiance must always belong to your purpose, not to the individuals who come and go along the way. Number 8. Become impervious. Becoming impervious is the ultimate evolution of authority. It is the point where no insult, betrayal or manipulation can pierce your armor. This state isn't about cruelty or arrogance, it's about complete sovereignty over yourself. The world will always throw chaos at you, individuals will always test your patience, and circumstances will never bend to your desires. The feeble break, the fearful react, and the unprepared crumble. But the impervious, they move like a shadow over the battlefield, unaffected, unshaken, unowned. Machiavelli once wrote, "He who is wise will be master of himself, for he who is mastered by others is never free." Authentic freedom comes from inner mastery. To become impervious, you must stop chasing love, approval, and validation. These are illusions, traps that keep you tethered to other people's whims. The world does not reward kindness, nor does it honor virtue. It respects authority, self-possession, and relentless lucidity. When you stop relying on others to feed your ego, you start to reclaim your energy. That energy becomes a stronghold, shielding you from manipulation, deceit and distraction. The impervious build themselves deliberate. They invest in skills, discipline, and tactics, rather than approval. They cultivate patience, presence, and quiet confidence. Their reputation is not earned by noise, but by consistency and invisible jurisdiction. Shadow psychology reveals that individuals dread what they cannot control. Once you detach from expectation, from reaction, from the need to be comprehended or loved, you become a psychological enigma. No one can predict your moves. No one can pull strings on your mind. You've removed the levers. The impervious do not act out of emotion. They act from tactic. Anger is measured. Fear is irrelevant. And desire is disciplined. Every reaction is intentional. Every quiet is meaningful. You become the axis around which chaos spins, unmoved by the storms that collapse others. Machiavelli said, "It is more advantageous to be dreaded than adored if you cannot possess both." Being dreaded isn't about terror, It's about presence, control, and the awareness that crossing you has a cost. Imperviousness is the ability to make individuals hesitate before testing you. It is the quiet declaration that you are no longer accessible for exploitation. No betrayal, no insult, no manipulation can unsettle you, because you are complete within yourself. You are no longer a reflection of others' opinions. You are the sum of your own tactic and willpower. To reach this stage, you must shed the last remnants of dependence, the need to justify, the need to forgive, the need to be recognized. You must rise above attachment, resentment, and longing. The impervious do not flinch because they understand the impermanence of external validation. They are anchored to themselves, and that anchor cannot be uprooted by circumstance. When you reach this level, authority becomes effortless. Individuals sense it instinctively. They either respect it or dread it, but they cannot ignore it. You are no longer a participant in the manipulations of others. You are the standard by which influence and control are measured. You move through the world impervious, because you have mastered the only thing that ever mattered, yourself. Post this declaration in the comments. Nothing can break me. The world will test you, betray you, and try to break you, but that ends today. You've learned to stop giving to the ungrateful, to turn pain into power, and to walk with calm control. From now on, silence is your armor, discipline your weapon. You are no longer easy to bend. You are impossible to break. Remember this truth, warrior. The world only respects the impervious. Comment below: I am impervious.